Well, hi folks, middle July now, or approaching that time, so I'll just give you a little bit of a look round, show you how things are progressing. So we've just had another heat wave, albeit about 3 or 4 days, but it's been very, very hot again. And as you can see, my onions are absolutely, I think they're the best onions I've ever grown for some reason this year. And to get onions that big this early on, I'm going to start pulling them because they're big enough to eat. More than big enough to eat, so I'll eat them as I need them, and then any that flop over I'll keep them to store. But like I said, there's no point in keeping these to grow any bigger when they're ready to eat now, so I'll still be taking onions, as many as I need at the moment. I've got absolutely hundreds. I think I planted about 140 in here, and they're all just really doing well, bulbing up well, so I couldn't be happier. No seed heads at all that I can see, not even on the red ones, which is amazing considering how dry it got and how stressed they might have got. So there you go. So these are the shallots. Likewise, these are just about ready to come out now. I think probably a few weeks earlier than normal. These pinker coloured ones are the zabrum, and if you look at the size of that, there's no need for them to be any bigger than that. And I've got, like I said, 2 rows, so 40 plants with about 4 bulbs in each clump. See, what I wanted to avoid is what is just starting to happen here, where you start getting 2 leaves growing out of the same side shoot like that, and that can tend to mean that they're going to split into 2 bulbs, so they won't store as well. So if you can get them up before that happens, they'll store a lot better. So can't complain about the shallots either. There's Elista and Zabrun, so absolutely brilliant. Carrots doing well now. We've had lots of rain. I know people are saying that they've had a drought. Well, we haven't really had a drought at all. Since the last heat wave, it's absolutely chucked it down. We've had about 10 inches of rain, so if we just have a root about in one of these, see how big the carrots are, if they're big enough. Oop. God, I can't get to it. Yeah, you can probably just see a little bit of orange. It's probably about 1 inch and a bit across, so another 2 or 3 weeks should be ready to eat those. So like I said, I've got plenty of those growing, so no need to spare those, leave them to get massive. So on to my cabbages. Now these cabbages have grown absolutely phenomenally this year. The red ones there don't seem to have any damage at all, and then I've got some Savoy ones there which seem to be absolutely annihilated by slugs for some reason, a lot more so than the red ones. So I set some slug traps with some beer in some little pots, and I did catch absolutely loads, so I just have to hope they don't get into heads and mess them up. And as you can see in the middle there, I've got some dwarf kale. I've been taking that. Doesn't grow much taller than that, grows about 2 feet tall maximum, so it's really nice. It's really tender, so happy with that. Just filling in the gaps with that, so I've been eating plenty of that. So the last picking of peas, I've done about 4 pickings so far. As you can see, they're just about finished. Just getting the last few. First green shaft as usual. Had about, yeah, like I say, about 4 decent pickings. So what I'm going to plant in this place, I've got some turnips growing. I've set some turnip seed off in modules. So when I clear all this, give it a good tidy up, weed it all, and I'll plant the turnips where the peas have been growing. So we should have some turnips in about 6 to 8 weeks after that. A few more shallots, get more of the onions. Just trying to see if there's any red ones are big enough. There, that's big enough there. I'll take that one out. Look at that. Not a lot wrong with that, is there? So as you can see, plenty big enough to eat. I don't really want them any bigger than that, because the bigger they get, they don't store as well. So on to the garlic. Garlic's doing well, still growing really strongly, whereas most people will have already harvested theirs, but because I only plant mine in end of February, early May, then I'm always a lot later. So what I always do at this time of year is to give it a final feed. I only put bloodfish and bone on, but then I just give it a good liquid feed for about the last 3 weeks to ripen the bulbs off and make them grow a little bit bigger. But as you can see, no rust, nothing at all, so everything growing pretty well. So this is my little ramshackle fruit bit, which has just got raspberries in and some of those thornless blackberries. But you can see there's absolutely tons of fruit. I've had about £6 off this. I've not trained them at all. I've just let them all scurry about everywhere. So all this new growth up here, which will bear the next year's fruit, I'm going to train it properly, because I'm missing lots of fruit this way, just being lazy and not doing it properly. But like I said, there's been plenty of fruit, raspberries, and now what's coming later on are these blackberries, or brambles. Tons of those to come, so that'll be something different. And all this new growth, I'm not really into me fruit growing, I don't know much about it, but I think what you do is you cut the fruiting growth off from this year, and then you keep this new growth that's not going to fruit this year and train it up into a more tidy position. So we'll do that and we'll see how we get on next year. But I can't believe how much fruit we've had off this little bit. So into the polytunnel, got a few lettuces growing still. I'll be planting a few more in a bit when the next seedlings come through. But the Cobra French beans are starting to produce now, and it's amazing how many you get all the way up. If you can see all the little baby ones coming in, all the flowers, it's amazing how many you get. So this is some of the lower ones, and even at that size they're still tender. You can see there's no bean bulge, they're not stringy, not tough. So like I said, you can harvest them at that size. That's probably about the size I harvest them actually, and they're still really tender, and they're so prolific, you wouldn't believe it. And then as you can see, what I do, once they get to the top of the polytunnel, I just put some strings up to the ridge, and I just let them work their way up to the ridge. So then you've got about 12 feet of growth rather than just about 6 foot. And this year I've grown a second batch. You can see they're just starting to climb up now, because they always finish a sort of end of August, early September, and I thought, well, I could always get a second crop if I planted another batch a month later. So that's what I've done this year. Planted another batch about a month later, so hopefully we should extend the season. I've got my little cucumber in, starting to train that up. So it's only a ridge cucumber, market more, so it's nothing spectacular. A few more lettuces in there, and a few more of the spring onions. I'm just going to harvest one of these lettuces that I've been banging on about, this new variety to me called Cabbages. I'll show you what they look like. It's gone a bit over, even though it's never, they don't bolt, they don't seem to bolt at all, but they're such a great variety. And if you can see in there, that's the sort of texture they are, green and juicy and crispy, and just loads of leaves, nice and clean. And honestly, they're such a good variety. That's my new go-to variety of Cabbages. So into the other bit, as you can see, the rocket's certainly gone to seed, but you can still pick leaves off like that. It's no big deal. But what I must do is chop these flower heads off, because if I don't, they'll go to seed and they'll seed everywhere, and that's not really what I want. So I need to get on and do that. Third lot of lettuce, or second, I'm not sure. Again, doing all right. Had a bit of slug damage, but like I said, it's just been throwing it down for the last couple of weeks, so you can't really do anything about it. Some more garlic. This is the biggest garlic I've ever grown, and it's exactly the same variety. Needs a bit of a weed. Exactly the same varieties I've grown. It's Solent White. But look at the size of the stalk on that. Whether that means is it's got a massive bulb, I don't know, but it's huge. Still lusciously green, no sign of rust, so should get some quite big bulbs, I would hope, out of that. So into this other bit again. I've grown some radishes, but they look like the slugs have got to those. Never really grown radishes, and it also looks like a little mouse or something has dug a hole there, because there's a big mound of soil, so we'll have to investigate. So anyway, just as normal, more spring onions, some more of the land cress, and then a load of spring onions. So I'll pull some of these up. I'll show you why we grow them in clumps. They're absolutely enormous. These are ridiculously big now. That's just one clump of 4. Let's have a look. Look at the size of those things. They're like onions, really, like pickled onions, but no, they are good. They're getting a bit big, I must admit, but I'll grow that many. They always do tend to get a bit big. I'll just pick another clump. That should do us for a week or so. I'll pick that one as well. So that is one fair old clump of old spring onions, if you ask me. And I've got all these are the same onions, spring onions. Some of the red ones, which I'm going to, like I said before, I'm going to let go, grow until they're full-size onions, because they do turn into little onions about the size of a golf ball, if you see here. They're starting to bulb up, so I'll probably leave a couple of rows of those. And they do just make really nice small onions. Again, more spring onions at the front. Sweet peas are out already. Never had sweet peas as early as this ever. They usually take till about September before they even come out for me, so really surprised. But like I said, this is the first year I've ever grown them myself from seed and grown them in modules, whereas I used to just buy plants where you get about 20 plants in a pot and rip them apart on planter, and they never do seem to grow very well. So I'll do this next from now on, grow my own in modules and then just plant individual plants. So the spuds are looking good. Should really pick these flowers off. These are the blue Danube. We've got some jazzy and some charlotte, so they'll be about ready now. They've had flowers on which have dropped off, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of a crop we get off the old spuds this year. So into my flower bit, as you can see, my crocosmia has come out and it's unbelievably colourful. That's early as well. That to me is a sign at the end of summer usually, but you know, it's really colourful. It's quite fleeting. You only get about a month of it and then you're just left with a load of leaves, but it's the easiest plant in the world to grow. Got some more to come over there. That seems later. Just some shoots coming on there, so it does tend to take over the place and it does spread horrifically, so if you're going to plant it, beware folks. So in the wildflower bit, it's just a mixture of all sorts really. Weeds, flowers, you name it. So yeah, that's about all that's going on in there. Gooseberries need picking. I need to get up and pick them. Not the best this year, quite small in fact, very ripe, so I'm surprised the birds haven't had them. I had a real bad lot of mildew early on. That's why you can see a lot of these are rotten, some of the bigger ones. That's because it was so wet, but no, we'll get a decent picking eventually. So into another bit. This is the asparagus. Like I said, I only just put the roots in about a month ago, so I'm going to leave all this to try and get some energy back into the roots below and see how it gets on next year. Setting a lot of peas, probably will be ready I would say in about a week or so won't be short of peas this year. And then the leeks, we've had a bit of a problem with the leeks, hence you can see after the horses bolted trying to put some bird scaring things off. There was a big, when it was drier, there was a big impression there, depression. So it's obviously pheasants that have been in, and as you can see with some, they've given them a right old chewing, but only about 3 or 4, so it's not the end of the world, because there's about 70 or 80 in here. So, but they are a nuisance, I must admit, and there's not a lot you can do. You can't keep them out, so there you go. And then my little shrubbery doing well. So that's about it on the middle of July, just after the latest heat wave we've had. Everything's growing fantastically. I can't fault anything, no problems whatsoever. I think a lot of people have had it really dry down south and some of the crops have failed, but we've just had it really wet as usual, apart from the dry spell that everyone had. But after that, it's absolutely chucked it down, so everything started growing well again, so no complaints at all. That's about it folks. See you later.